Welcome to HEX, episode 7. First up, Fiona talks with Ian Bonifacic about a kitchen generator tool he built for Houdini and 3ds Max. Next up, I'll speak with some of the presenters from Houdini Hive SIGGRAPH, including Grant Miller from Ingenuity Studios, Nema Safvati and Ashraf Ghoniem from Blizzard, Philipp Buschauer from Access Studios, Andreas Giesen from Rise FX, and Andrew Graham from Open FireHawk. Next up, Ben Mears speaks with Megan Fox, the developer of the indie game SkateBIRD. Then Deborah Isaac speaks with Matthew Jukes, the instructor of a course on procedural city building with Houdini and Unreal. Let's jump in.
Hello, everyone. Here's Fiona from marketing at SideEffects, and I have with me today Ian Bonifacic, who is the author of the recently released kitchen generator tool that you may or may not have seen on SideEffects.com. So, what's interesting about Ian is that his background is predominantly 3ds Max, so he's a Max guy, but he was looking into Houdini for like a little bit, and so yeah, like we thought that this project could be of use for people who are doing ArcViz or need some kitchen cabinetry in their 3D life.
In their life.
So I'll let Ian talk about himself, like where he's from, where he's working, what he's been doing for the past little while, and also about the tool. So welcome, Ian.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody. Okay, so my name is Ian Bonifacic. I come from Croatia. I'm an ArchViz artist, currently working at a local company called Polymachine. I have been a professional ArchViz artist for, 6 years or something, but I've been doing 3ds Max for quite some time, quite longer. And yeah, I got interested in Houdini like maybe 3 years ago or something when I like properly heard about it and saw what you can achieve in it. So I kind of tried learning it, and this process took a while for me to even understand the whole help thing in Houdini, or how everything works, or where can I find anything. It took me a while to switch from Max mindset to Houdini mindset, but once you start to understand things, it gets really clear how easy you can do stuff if you know how, of course. And I decided to start learning it, and I always have this approach, like you have to set a real goal to really learn something. You have to make yourself like a challenge, like I want to create this or I want to create that, and then sort of go through the smaller problems to solve the bigger problem of the whole challenge, I would say. So this was the idea with the kitchen generator. So why kitchen generator? It's not the most exciting thing in the world, kitchen cabinets. But yeah, in my day-to-day life, I ended up doing kitchens over and over, like always the same 60 centimeter module with additional 80 centimeter module for the sink and stoves and ducting and cabinets and everything else. And as we are lazy in our company, we don't like to repeat certain tasks if we don't have to. This is sort of the idea. I'm just gonna make a script that's gonna do this thing that I keep repeating over and over again. So yeah, I mean, I started with that. I did some research on kitchens in general, like what are the actual dimensions of everything, and what are the essential parts of kitchens. I mean, it seems obvious, but you have to check. And yeah.
So guys, those aren't arbitrary numbers. Just saying, yes. They're yes. Legit, like. ArcViz numbers. I don't know
it's
how you guys
centimeters.
Call them. Yeah.
metric system, nothing imperial, please. And yeah, so my logic behind this was you start out with a box, you take an empty scene, you draw yourself a box, like how big of a kitchen you want, like how wide the kitchen, the whole kitchen is, and you apply the tool to it, you insert the assets you pre-modeled, or I have already provided. Yes, exactly. You get some freebies, and that's it. Then the generator basically sorts it around. Like you have this randomization sliders, you have, I don't know, like cabinets on or off, or I don't know, you can, but you don't have to load certain assets. For instance, the duct, or I don't know, oven or sink. You don't have to include it. You can have a kitchen without a sink if you want. But yeah, basically you have to load in just a couple of cabinets, and it's gonna arrange the whole kitchen setup. And the countertop and the bottom part of the kitchen is they're procedural, so you can slide like how thick you want it, how much do you want it to protrude outside, and the backsplash of the kitchen, like the tiles, where the tiles usually go. You get a nice box to at least fake the tiles, so you can apply the materials, or you can just use it to measure how big of, for instance, I don't know, floor generator is typically used in 3ds Max to create tiles, so you get you get geometry which you can just then extract and apply a modifier, and you get proper tiles in geometry. So yeah, that was the logic, and I sort of limited the tool itself to certain parameters, so you don't have too many options, because then I think the tool becomes obsolete, sort of, because you waste more time to set up the sliders to get the perfect kitchen than just to get, I don't know, 80%, 90% done. And then with a couple of more clicks without the tool, you get the result which you wanted. So for instance, the fridge is not a part of the kitchen, which you can always just put on the side. It's usually on the side, or if it's, I don't know, some sort of a special built-in fridge, then you have to model it anyway because it's special. So it's not standard. And yeah, that was basically the logic behind this. And I think you can get, I mean, it's probably not the hero shot kitchen like up close, but it all depends on you, because you can model, you can take the assets I already made for you guys, and you can detail them as much as you want, and then you're gonna get much more detailed version of the kitchen. It really depends on the assets you load. So you can use boxes, but you can use, I don't know, 10 million polygon assets if you want. It's
Baroque panels.
It's just gonna, it's just gonna arrange them around. So yeah, for panels, super dense mesh of a front. So yeah, boxes are usually enough for a backdrop archway scene. But yeah, if you're doing, I don't know, like sort of open cabinets with drawers and everything in, you can just, if you model them that way, they're gonna work. So it takes what you give it to. So yeah, it's all up to you. And I'm really curious how far you can push this tool. So we'll see about that. But yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much it about the tool itself. I think it's super simple to use. You just load up the stuff I gave you, give it a shot, see how it works. I'm also open for some additional discussion about this. In a way, if the community decides there's a better, I don't know, usability thing that should be, I don't know, done a bit differently. Like if something is turned on the start, it should be better to be turned off on the start. So stuff like this, I mean, we can always change. But yeah, I'm really, really curious what you guys are gonna come up with, and we'll see. Yeah. But there's let me mention, a quite huge improvement in stability of Houdini Engine, because last time I used it used to crash all the time. And now it just works like a charm. You can even use Corona Interactive and change sliders, and it hasn't crashed to me once. So far, so good. Really, really good job on developers as well. So just small click.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it sounds like not kosher to point out that like software doesn't crash, but
okay.
let's be real. Like software does become unstable depending on like what things you do, right? So it's totally valid point to just know like upfront what you may or may not be working with, and obviously like we want to improve the stability of the product overall. So yeah. It was good for your suffering and also for our feedback. Do you have any wishes for 3ds Max plugin for the Houdini Engine plugin?
Wishes as in improvements to the engine itself?
Yeah, or just like anything off the top of your head.
So the only thing that bugs me, but I already discussed this with Brandon, I did not want to mention this, but it's just the decimal point conversion. It's just the sliders are currently locked to a lot of decimal points, which are not necessary because they're 0 anyway, so you can just round them off. But yeah, I mean, Brandon already mentioned he's gonna fix that, and he couldn't like come up like a quick hot fix because it's a internal thing, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't want to be too specific on this because I'm not a programmer myself. But yeah, I mean, everything else really works like a charm. I mean, connecting to the tool takes 3 seconds, and the sliders work perfectly well. And this is not sort of a copy to point sort of a tool. That it's a bit more complex than that, and it also calculates, and it has booleans in it, and chamfers and a lot of stuff. Normals are working fine as well. So yeah, I mean, I haven't found any limitations so far with the Houdini engine itself. So, but yeah, I'll try to work on some more projects in the future, and we'll be happy to do that. And I hope I don't find any limitations.
I mean, if anybody has like wishes for like what those things could be, like Ian would be happy to receive some, I guess, maybe.
Oh yeah,
but
I mean,
that also depends on what is happening next in your life, right? So maybe you won't have time for this later on, or who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. I'm still not sure. So yeah, I got accepted at so my journey at Polymachine is coming to an end after almost 4 years now, and I got a job offer from IKEA of Sweden, and I'll be moving to Sweden to work. I think it's the marketing department of IKEA of Sweden, which is the department that does all the IKEA animations, the catalog, and most of their internal 3D stuff. So yeah, I'll be moving there, and we'll see how busy I will be. But I'm always dabbling on something in my free time, so I'll keep working on Houdini. Trust me, I have to. I want to get better at it. I really want to be good at it at some point. So I must.
So I think that's all the time we have before Bill kind of like makes the cut your neck kind of signal. So thanks for the chat, Ian, and we wish you well in your journey to Sweden later in this year, and hopefully we can do more stuff together.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to do this interview. And it's been an honor, I must say. I haven't had an interview before, so thank you very much for this and the opportunity to work with side effects, I must say. I mean, yeah, that was really nice, and it was really motivating for me, like, to get stuff done. Once you get a proper project on your belt, like to start working on something, your motivation goes up. So yeah, thank you for that.
Also, thanks, Andrzej, for the awesome
Of course. I have to mention my partner who helped me a lot in this project. I mean, you presumably have seen already the animation for the product, and so Andrzej Podgornik, he's a 3D guy. He used to work with me at Polymachine as well. He did most of the animations in 3ds Max, and he did most of the production of the actual video. I did most of the stuff for the actual tool. So yeah, I mean, thumbs up, man. He really kicked ass, and I hope you guys will like the animation. So yeah, that's it pretty much.
So thanks, Ian, and we'll catch you later.
Hey, it's Chris from Side Effects. I'm here with Grant Miller from Ingenuity Studios. Hey, Grant.
How's it going?
Good. So at our SIGGRAPH Hive, you're going to be doing a presentation on your transition to USD at Ingenuity. What was your original pipeline?
So, I mean, originally we were 3D Studio Max V-Ray, and then we moved over to doing Maya V-Ray, and then we were actually Houdini V-Ray for a good while, and then we switched over to RenderMan specifically to support Solaris and USD, just because that's kind of the standard for rendering inside of USD.
And what were some of the factors that took you towards USD and Solaris?
We were really looking to solve the material problem, so allowing artists to do look dev and stuff and kind of set up in Maya, but then have that same stuff come over to Houdini and not really need a lot of involvement after that, but still have it be editable. Still being able to go in and tweak stuff and tweak a color correct here or there, that sort of thing. So that was a big kind of key for us. And then also just from a performance standpoint, we were building, especially since the pandemic, we've just been doing a lot of really large set extensions. Like we need to build Los Angeles or Scotland, so it's it's kind of like the size of a scene that you can hold inside of USD is just, it's incredible. And it really doesn't seem to care about rendering millions and millions and millions of polys. So that's been really great for us, because it just frees the artists up to worry about putting pixels on the screen and not about like doing an LOD for a tree that is in the background.
Yeah, for sure. So once you had decided to do that, what were some of the steps that you took and some of the challenges that you faced along the way?
We made the transition, like pilot season last year kind of dumped out because of the pandemic. So we found that we had some time to, work through the R&D of, getting assets going, getting publishing going into USD, just kind of broad strokes, stuff like that. One of the big challenges for us was getting the resolver stuff to work, because that's a little more complex than, what our typical pipeline tasks are, which is Python automation, and that was like a pretty heavy C++ type deal. But yeah, other than that, it was pretty smooth sailing really as a transition. We kind of started off on, small jobs, kind of testing it, and in kind of classic Ingenuity fashion, we're immediately like, let's make something huge with it and see what breaks along the way.
So what's next?
I really think, the integration with Unreal is a big one that we're kind of interested in. The real-time team here is pretty large and does a lot of, on-set virtual production type stuff and previs stuff. And I think being able to efficiently transition that stuff straight to final through USD is very appealing. And then also just getting it to kind of actually go back and forth so that you can, we have a lot of, like we have motion capture in-house at the studio, being able to kind of go into a scene and lay out cameras and stuff like that. And you just kind of have that be very connected and easy, as opposed to, kind of two separate steps currently.
Right on. Well, thank you for pulling that presentation together. We really appreciate it. Looking forward to watching it. And thanks for joining us today.
Of course.
Cheers. Hey, it's Chris from Side Effects, and I'm here with Ashraf and Nema from Blizzard. Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
So at the Houdini Hive SIGGRAPH, you'll be doing a presentation on one of your projects. Maybe we can start with a little intro on yourselves.
Sure. My name is Ashraf Ghoniem. I'm the effects department supervisor over at Blizzard Animation, or SFD. We primarily deal with all the cinematics, all the in the games, and that get released out for consumption, for promotional, and just to further the story.
Yeah, I'm Nema. I'm an effects artist on the same team. Ash is my supervisor. We create the effects that go in cinematics for the games. And before this, I worked. I freelanced in the feature film industry for about a few years. Been at Blizzard for 2.5 now.
Right on. And what's this project? How would you describe it, Ashraf?
It's by 3 They Come. It's the Diablo IV announcement piece. We released it at BlizzCon 2019. It was a really important project for us at SFD. We were pushing into a new renderer. We were pushing into new workflows. It was important that we were trying to, really highlight the game as best as we could, because there's a lot of excitement at the studio around the game. And the interesting thing about it as well was that the game it's Diablo, which is really gory, and we were trying in the effects department, and I think Nema's work will show this, to find this balance between goriness and beauty. So I think there's a whole thread line of like what we're trying to do throughout the effects of like, try this thing that you want to look at, we want to make people want to look at it, but we still want it to be gory because it's blood and guts and all that stuff.
Beautiful gore.
Beautiful gore. Thank you. So beautiful gore was our marching orders. The guys did a great job on that. And yeah, that's pretty much the piece. It speaks for itself for the most part. It is Diablo.
So in the presentation itself, Nema, what will we be covering?
So there's a specific scene, series of shots towards the end where the character Lilith comes through this portal, and the portal is formed out of a bunch of flesh and blood of these three other characters who become sacrifices, right? So this required a few different things. First was the actual formation of the portal, which was done with like just a ton of curves that come from growth sims that we built sort of growth solver for, and we go into that. And then after that, it's a lot of Vellum stuff for the stretching and tearing shots, where there's the base like layer of it that's just like a cloth simulation, and then we made these gooey sort of strand-like structures hanging off of that. So we were going for as much complexity as we could while trying to keep it gross and pretty at the same time. So yeah, we'll go into all that in the presentation.
Well, thank you for pulling that together and for sharing it with the community, and looking forward to seeing it. Thanks for joining us today, guys.
Thanks.
Cheers. Hey, it's Chris from Side Effects, and I'm here with Philipp Buschauer from Access Studios over in Scotland. Hey, Philipp.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. So as part of our Hive SIGGRAPH, you'll be doing a presentation on implementing a CFX pipeline. What's that presentation generally about?
So the presentation will be mainly about the thought process behind it and the core concepts I had. So like what was important for me for the whole pipeline. And then obviously some like Houdini live demos to show how it looks like inside of the software.
Right on. So what was your pipeline like before you implemented Houdini?
Yeah, so before we switched to Houdini for CFX, we were using Maya for CFX mainly. But since we were already using Houdini for grooming, we started to use Houdini for hair simulations. And then once Vellum came in and everything was a lot more approachable for the artists, we decided to just switch everything CFX related to Houdini and started this slow like transition from Maya to Houdini and getting the artists familiar with Houdini and getting them over to the software.
So you've decided to do it. What were some of the steps along the way, and what were some of the challenges that you faced in implementing?
So I think the first step was that we moved hair simulations into Houdini. That was then mainly an FX task and a grooming task because those were the artists that already knew the software quite well. And then for each project, we slowly moved more aspects into Houdini. And at the very beginning, it was more custom setups per shot, and like every artist was like kind of working a little bit. However, they wanted and like what gets the job done. And then we slowly started to bundle up those tools, build a pipeline around it, make like a proper workflow so that it's easier for new artists coming in to just use those tools and just get the work done. And
so what are the great things about this flow now? Like, what are some of the benefits that you're finding?
I think the main benefit is that with this pipeline specifically is that you don't really need to know too much about like Houdini or like the Access pipeline in general. So the tool set is built that with a couple of clicks of a button, it gets you started, and it sets up the whole setup for you. Which obviously, you can simulate it, but it will not give you like the best results. But then it has like these working areas where artists can do their job and make the setups properly, make stuff look awesome. And the tool set is just controlling how data comes in, gives them a template to get them started, and then obviously handles how the data is getting published down the pipe. So that was like the core concept of handling everything technical, and then giving these working areas where the artists can do their magic.
Right on. Well, thanks so much for pulling that into a presentation for our Hive, and really looking forward to watching it. And thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
See you, Philipp. Hey, it's Chris from Side Effects, and I'm here with Andreas Giesen from Rise. Hey, Andreas.
Hey, Chris. Glad to be here.
So at our Hive SIGGRAPH, you'll be doing a presentation on one of your projects. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's basically about Jim Button and the Wild 13. It's a German feature film based on a famous children book. And I think especially that it's based on a children book, mostly there's a lot of fantastical stuff into it. And that's also the case here. So basically they do a journey and they arrive at all magical places, like some magnetic islands. They travel to over the clouds, basically driving a steam machine. So it's fantastical, but it's allowed for many interesting environments, basically. And I think we worked on it for about 1 year. We had about 150 shots in total and 20 to 30 full CG shots among them. Because for sure, a cloudscape with a steam engine traveling through is not doable in a studio. So yeah, that was a quite interesting project.
So in this presentation, what are some of the shots that you'll be talking about?
I think the focus of the presentation will be the shots where basically large-scale volume and fluid simulations are involved. It's basically some shots where they sail with a big ship right into a typhoon. So basically the main actors get captured by a pirate crew and they take them to their stronghold, which is an island in the middle of this typhoon. And so they sail right into it. The ship sails up in the typhoon and then lands in the eye of the storm where it's pretty calm. And then at some point, the whole island collapses, the ship drops into the water again. Yeah, so it's really, there were really big effect shots involved into this sequence.
Very cool. And so what were some of the technical challenges that you faced along the way and how did you deal with them?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenges were definitely the scale of these simulations. I mean, we've done at Rise in the past already big volume stuff and also some water, but in this case, basically, it was about a whole ocean around the island. The ship sails through it. We had the typhoon catching the water, pushing it up into the air. So it was really combining all these different effect simulations. So for the typhoon, it was mainly a pyro simulation, which was then used as velocity for the to pull up the water from the ocean. And it was such a big scale that we also had to dive into distributed simulations because it was not doable on one machine. So we had to split it on several machines in the render farm, combine everything back again, and to basically cover the whole area. And even though the simulation area was so big in some of the shots that we also developed a system that basically, for sure, the normal ocean already blends the simulation in the ocean surface, which is just driven by the spectrum. But we also had then a system which made sure that we could simulate nice white water, all the foam and the bubbles, also on the non-simulated ocean area. But using the default basically white water systems, so to just be able to manage this huge amount of white water and particles. I think that was definitely the biggest challenge, and also I think our hero shot in the end, what I just mentioned, the whole island collapses. It was nearly 400 frames long. And so also this was already a challenge. And then in this shot, the ship was dropping as well. So we needed Vellum simulations for the sails. We had complex rigid body simulations for the stones ripping off the island with pyro for the dust. And then this basically affecting again all the water simulations where the ship drops in. So yeah, it was really exciting and a challenging journey, I would say.
Awesome. Well, thanks for pulling the presentation together and sharing that with the community. And looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Good seeing you. Hey, it's Chris from Side Effects, and I'm here with Andrew Graham. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, good to be on the show.
So as part of Houdini Hive SIGGRAPH, you're doing a presentation on FireHawk PDG tools. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so FireHawk PDG tools is something that started as a freelancer, and it was used by Stormborn Studios, who contributed to it, and Rising Sun Pictures have also contributed to the repository in a massive way. They've really taken it to a point where it's something that I think would be useful for a lot of people. So it's meant to basically provide some ability for some conventions that we'd normally be used to in visual effects to use them with PDG. So in visual effects, we're pretty commonly used to things like being able to automatically increment a version when we're cooking something. And we usually also need things like a timestamped version of the HIP file to reproduce anything that we generate. So FireHawk PDG Tools is supposed to provide an easier to install method of being able to get someone up and running with that.
Cool. And how did you come up with FireHawk PDG Tools? Where did it come from?
So it started when I was freelancing, and PDG became generally available around that time. And pretty quickly, I had lots of questions for side effect support, trying to figure out how I could automatically increment versions when cooking. And around about that time, there was a lot of evolution that happened. You created things like cache handlers and stuff like that within the next year or two. So FireHawk PDG Tools sort of evolved and emerged from that need to be able to generate an incremented version as a freelancer so that I could reproduce something, so that if I looked at anything that I was writing or any render that I made, I had the means to be able to reproduce that thing reliably. And that's not something that I was able to get out of the box with PDG immediately. It's historically a trivial thing to be able to generate an automatically incremented version when you were back using ROPs. But now with PDG, it's not so trivial. You have to kind of use PDG in a certain way in order to get the most out of it. So I've tried to work with side effect support in producing a framework and an easy to install Houdini package that does that in, I guess, a way that tries to be as open as possible. Like, it tries to give people the ability to manipulate it and alter it in whatever way they might need.
Right on. Well, really looking forward to the presentation. That's at the Houdini Hive SIGGRAPH, and it'll be on sideeffects.com shortly after that. So thanks for pulling that together. Really appreciate it, and for sharing with the community.
Thanks for inviting me on the show, and yeah, I hope everyone enjoys the presentation.
Cheers, Andrew. Bye.
See ya.
Hey everyone, today I'm here with Megan Fox of Glass Bottom Games to talk about SkateBIRD. How are you doing today, Megan?
Doing all right. Just, working on the game.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Glass Bottom Games?
Sure. My name is Megan Fox. I founded out at Glass Bottom Games. Been doing this for, like a decade, I think, at this point. And before that, I was in AAA and yada yada. There's more career there, but I've been doing this for about a decade. SkateBIRD is our fourth game, and yeah, it's the best one so far.
And tell us a little bit about SkateBIRD. Like, what kind of game is it?
SkateBIRD is a game about trying your best. You're a little skateboarding bird, and your big friend doesn't play with you anymore, and you're going to solve this with the power of being a skateboarding bird.
And so obviously the reason we're here talking today is that you are using Houdini in your game dev workflow. So can you tell us how you're using Houdini?
Sure. Well, we use it a lot. Like our artist just likes using Houdini for just regular modeling, like stuff that doesn't have to be a system. She'll still often do it that way because her background is as an engineer, and Houdini's workflow is not like CAD, but it is more on that side, and it's very tweakable, so it ends up working well for us for a lot of reasons. As far as how we're using it in SkateBIRD specifically, like cool ways, mostly we're using it for the ramp system. Like, she built a ramp system that like so skateboarding ramps, half pipe, quarter pipe, etc., like all of those fun boxes and transfers. She made a system that can do essentially every ramp we ever need. It can control radius, it can control steepness, it can control if there's vert on the top, it can control if it's a standard ramp, if it's a corner ramp, if it's an inside corner, outside corner, end cap, like every single parameter you can imagine, we can essentially build. So instead of having to make either a billion independent ramps and hope they all snap together and like probably never intermingle them or be really careful or really labor intensive, or just have every ramp in the game look essentially the same, we were able to instead have a bunch of different ramps. Some of them have backsides as spacers so they look more like traditional ramps. Some of them squish right up against something else. In one case, we turned a ramp into a spice rack because of the way we could change the dimensions and put spices like right there where usually there'd be the back of a ramp. All kinds of craziness like that. And it works amazingly well for that.
That's awesome. And you're using the Unity game engine to build the game. Can you tell us just a bit about bringing the assets from Houdini into Unity?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that the process works essentially the same for Unity or Unreal. We're going to use Unreal next time. But yeah, basically the process is you export a live asset. Well, unless you're exporting an FBX, which is just a static mesh. If you're just using a modeler, it's a boring process. But if you're actually using Houdini as Houdini, you're going to import it as a whatever the file, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's HDA. A live file. It's HDA. It's a very large file. You can just drop it into the system, like into your scene or whatever, and tweak the parameters there, and that works fine. Though what you find whenever you're trying to ship a game is that the end scene size of these gets huge because there's a ton of data associated with them. So often what you actually want to do is you want to put them into a secondary scene, get them sized well to work as a set or whatever it is that you're building with them, bake them into a prefab there, and then use the static just mesh prefab in your actual scene. And that'll keep your scene sizes down and keep the other problem you run into is whenever you touch, click on a asset in Unity, that causes a load of the Houdini engine. Since everything you're doing in Unity with Houdini or Unity isn't actually doing the work. It's calling a separate application. And that separate application takes a while to load. So when you initially click on a Houdini asset, it takes like 3 minutes to load, depending on how fast your computer is. And if your designer's in there and they click the wrong thing, that can really get bad fast. So if you put them in the secondary scene where your Houdini-friendly designer works, and then give everyone else safe prefabs that just, they just do their thing, usually that's a pretty safe way. You don't got to do it that way, but if you're going to have a larger team, ship on consoles, anything like that, you definitely want to do it more that way.
Yeah, that's a great workflow tip. Thanks for that. And so where can people get SkateBIRD? Is it out yet? How can people play it?
Not yet. It'll be out soon. You can look for us on Steam. We'll be on itch. And of course, we'll be on Xbox and Switch. And we'll also be on Amazon Luna, should you wish to try the streaming approach.
All right. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to us today. And we're looking forward to playing SkateBIRD.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deborah Isaac. I am a Houdini educator. I currently teach at Drexel University, and I'm also the founder of Houdini School. Today we're with Matthew Jukes. Hi, Matthew.
Hi.
Do you think you could tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I'm a 3D artist based in Wellington, New Zealand. Currently I'm working at Weta Digital. Prior to that, I was working in tertiary education, teaching generalist 3D, but mainly centered around sort of Houdini related topics. And before that, I was working at Puck Road post-production and doing sort of some odd indie work for like music videos and web series.
So your course on how to make a procedural city in Houdini and Unreal on CG Circuit looks really interesting. Can you tell us about your process, how you used OpenStreetMaps, and also your clever way of pre-texturing?
Yeah. So using OpenStreetMap, which is great for sort of giving you a base, comes with lots of really useful data. Depending on the city, I use New York for my course. It's because it's got lots of really good detail, like the actual building shape and that sort of thing. And so take that OpenStreetMap data, ingest it into Houdini and convert it into like the base buildings, and then isolating the sort of wall panels and converting them into basically 2D point grids, and then instancing pre-built, pre-textured modules onto that using lots of HEX.
Why do you think Unreal and Houdini go so well together?
So they go really well together because on the side, I'm also trying to develop a game solo. And I don't think that would be possible, or at least it would be a lot harder to do if you didn't have something like Houdini to sort of procedurally generate large amounts of assets and sort of speed up workflows, all that sort of thing. And particularly Houdini Engine and the new beta, just being able to run those Houdini tools you build straight in Unreal Engine is great. And particularly I've noticed with the beta one, it runs almost as fast as it does in Houdini, which is awesome. And you can just build so much as a solo person. Yeah.
Which program did you learn first, Unreal or Houdini?
So I learned Houdini first. I first picked up Houdini, I think it was Houdini 13. Trying to learn it back then I think I was a student at the time. The online training for it was definitely not nearly what it is now. It's so good now. There's so much around, so much high quality content. And then I've been using Unreal for about 3 years. Yeah, and just pairing the two together. And I've been the last sort of year or two very focused heavily on sort of combining the two.
Can you tell us a little bit about what really interests and inspires you?
Yeah. So I kind of consider myself a very lazy artist. If I can make the computer do it for me, I will. And that's where I really kind of just fell in love with Houdini, being able to procedurally generate stuff, automate stuff, as well as I really enjoy doing stuff efficiently and finding these really clever solutions to build stuff. So that's kind of what inspires me. It's building tools to do the work for me.
I love that. So last question, what do you think you'll work on next?
So I've got my ongoing personal game project, which has endless deadline and will take me probably 20 years to finish. But also I'm sort of working on the next course for CG Circuit as well, doing a full sort of procedural asset pipeline with generating textures in the COP network with megascans and using PDG to save stuff out and automate wedging and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm targeting Unreal Engine 5 for this one as well to sort of utilize Nanite, which I'm really excited about, being able to generate very high, quite dense meshes in Houdini and just have them run in a game engine. Yeah, so my next plan.
Well, good luck with the course. I think it's going to be really popular. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.